Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Clyde Shirati, and welcome to this edition of African Knowledge. This is the show where we provide a platform to all African Australians to be able to share their insights, their knowledge, their stories, their experience, anything that they can share that adds value to the community. And we want to say thank you to all those who have continued to give us very good feedback about what you're doing and made suggestions. We will continue to consider those suggestions and incorporate them to make this experience as rich as it can be. Tonight, we'll be talking about entrepreneurship, doing business, and specifically diaspora doing business in Africa. More on this story straight after this. Thank you very much. We do apologize. We've had again a little bit of a glitch in the system. We're still getting there. Got limited resources, and sometimes things get a little out of control. But we're getting there, and things are becoming better. But we still have a few issues, so that's why we're starting late. Nonetheless, as I said earlier, we're talking about business tonight, and my guest who will be speaking with me in relation to this topic is none other than NKANDU BELTZ. NKANDU, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Good evening, and good evening to all our viewers and listeners.
All right. NKANDU is a very prominent member of the African Australian community, and she is in Perth, but she's known all over Australia. She was in Melbourne. We lost her here in Melbourne for it's been a couple of years or so, and we sort of mourned when she left. And but we still at least see you on the digital world. NKANDU, why did you leave Melbourne? Why aren't you coming back?
Once the lockdown is lifted in Melbourne, I will surely be on the first plane.
Yeah, at least you guys in Perth are enjoying the good time. We in Melbourne have forgotten what it means to move around and move freely.
Exactly. We're thinking of you all, and we're hoping that this ends very soon.
All right. Thank you very much for your good thoughts in relation to what we're experiencing here. Now, NKANDU, introduce yourself a little bit to those who may not know you, who you are, what you do, your background, and everything else that you can share.
Oh, where do we start? How much time do we have?
Well, I'll give you 2 minutes max to try
2
to
minutes.
package all of that into a 2 minute introduction.
Wonderful. Well, so my name is NKANDU BELTZ, and I was born in Zambia, in Katete, a small village. And from a very, very young age, I've been involved in business, entrepreneurship. I have a background in journalism and news writing, as well as being known as a serial investor. So I suppose that sums a lot of what I've done so far. So I've worked in print, radio, television, and currently doing exploration for copper in Zambia.
Okay, that is very good. So you do a lot of things. I know you've got a lot of hats that you wear. Tonight, we just want you to wear one hat, which is the business hat. But
Yeah.
you can talk about other things as well that you do in the process. Now, you are involved in business in exploring or mining exploration in Africa. Tell us what led you to do that amongst all the other things that you do already.
Well, I suppose it was identifying the gap in the market. And when I moved from Melbourne from Victoria to Western Australia, and I was doing interviews for Africa Down Under, which is one of the biggest conferences in the world on mining and exploration. And this is a hub where you find, investors and vendors and technicians. Everybody comes into one place, governments as well from Africa, as well as here in Australia. So having interviews with all the stakeholders and change makers, I thought there was a gap that I could fill in. And initially it started as linking up vendors, so mainly people with mining projects and investors, here in Australia and mostly Zambia and Zimbabwe. And then later on, I thought, we could actually create employment by creating exploration projects, because when you look at it, there's a lot of potential in Africa, and Africa is really underexplored.
Absolutely. Africa remains underexplored. Africa presents a lot of opportunities for investors, both foreign and nationals. But is it that easy to do business in Africa, especially for the African diaspora? That's kind of the topic we're going to be talking, trying to sort of dissect tonight.
Yes.
Tell us what you think about that.
Well, the answer is yes and no. So Africa has got its challenges, but then again, Africa is rising. So when you look at Africa, I was reading this book, Making Africa Work, by Greg Mills and Olusegun Obasanjo. And they were talking about, Africa is not just a problem to be solved, but a business opportunity to be embraced. And some of the challenges that a lot of entrepreneurs would have is, I think, having access to a better understanding of what the market is like in Africa. Because we are here and we don't know what's happening there. Things are moving very, very fast. And also, I can speak on behalf, like, for example, for Zambia, there's been a lot of good policies that have been set in place. Like, for example, the mining code has been very, very consistent in Zambia. So it makes mining and exploration far much easier than other parts of Africa.
Okay, so I suppose Africa is a continent. There's a lot of different things that happens in different countries. We shouldn't just put everything in one basket. Some countries are more business friendly than others. At least some countries have done a lot in terms of facilitating business for an investment, and others still have a way to go. But overall, do you think that in your experience, whether it's about the Zambian government or the rest of the African government, have they done enough to not only encourage the diaspora to invest, but also, I suppose, help them in the process to make things easy for them to engage in business?
Well, I think a lot of governments in Africa have been engaging with the diaspora community. And I'll speak about what I know. For example, with the Zambian government, they've been very much pushing for dual citizenship. And this means that, people here in Australia or anywhere else in the world, they can go back and invest in Africa, in Zambia in particular. And with the free, this new trade agreement that was implemented on the 1st of January this year, it means that, we're not looking at just the market cap of maybe 17 million people, but we're looking at, 300 million people. So with such a policy in place of, giving the dual citizenship, that actually opens up a lot of doors, and it also helps in the economic development of the many countries, because a lot of the investment is going to come from the private sector, and the private sector is the people in the diaspora.
From my experience, it looks like when many of the African governments, when they sort of trying to make sort of clean up their business settings to make it easy for investment, they're more thinking of just the big boys, the big mining companies, the big investors in Europe or in the West to go and do business. They tend to do very little, at least some of them, not all of them. I know there are countries such as Ethiopia or even Kenya that I know that have done quite a bit to make things easy for the diaspora, but the great majority of African countries still haven't really quite done sufficiently in terms of making it attractive and easy for the diaspora to invest in Africa. Do you agree with that, or you have a different view?
I do agree, and this comes back to the policies that these governments will actually have to put in place and actually implement them, and they have to move very, very fast, because more than 60% of the population is youth. So we need to make sure that we create policies that are investor friendly and that give investors confidence in coming to invest in Africa. So yeah, I think the realities that we're dealing with is just, with time, how fast do we move? And I think a lot of the governments are trying to catch up.
And when you go to Zambia to do mining exploration, did you receive any particular assistance, or did you see anything that is available there for people like you from Australia, from Western countries, or who may have capital, who may want to go and do business in Africa? Did you see anything specific to assist you in that process, or is just you come like everybody else, what you want to do and
No, certainly. With my experience, so I found that a lot of African governments have set up this one-stop shop where you can go and actually get all the information that you need to invest in that country. And they will actually point you to the right agencies. So for example, Zambia has the Zambia Development Agency. And you go there, you sit down with them, you explain why you are there and what it is that you want to invest in. And the Zambia Development Agency has the guidelines to, say, this is what you can invest in, these are the opportunities available, and these are the priority sectors. And it's not only Zambia that has this one-stop shop. We have got one in Botswana, we've got the Zimbabwe Investment Agency, Ethiopia has got one as well. So it's just working with the governments. And if you're not sure, or anybody wants to invest in Africa and they're not sure, the best thing to do is to call up the Chamber of Commerce. So even here in Australia, for those that are in Australia, you find that there is the, Zambia Chamber of Commerce, or there's the Africa Chamber of Commerce, or associations that are linked to Africa. And those also have very, very good, a very good database that we can tap into to make sure that we're connected to the right people on the other end. So in terms of navigating the system, I found it very easy by going through government agencies, because then they lead me to the right departments and ministries and the right people.
Yeah, it is true that many African governments have got this one-stop shop sort of settings, which is actually a good thing, because in the past you've had to go into 10 different offices before you get your
trading permits,
authorization and all that sort of thing. But most of them kind of stop there. Only in a few countries, and I know I was having a chat with an Ethiopian friend. It's been a while, actually. Things may have changed recently due to some of the instability that is happening there. But Ethiopia, the government was going beyond just, obviously providing people information about where are the priorities and how they can be assisted. They were actually sort of working with them, and even putting money into, if you come up with a good project, the government will help either to get credit, or even to put money into your business to work together with you to make it easy. That is not often seen in many African countries. What do you think of that?
It is very true, but then there's also organizations like the African Union, for example. There are some funding that is available to tap into there, and partnerships with governments as well. But with my experience, it's been a lot of self-funding that has gone into my project. So I haven't been able to source funds from other for externally. But in terms of guidance, especially with the mining and exploration, we've had a lot of help, from the chamber, from ZDA, from the Ministry of Mines. And it's just picking up the phone call, or just going there and say, look, this is what we're dealing with. What is the best way to to go about it? And then also partnering with local consultants in the country, because they know the best, they know the land, they know the system, they know the language. So working with the locals is very, very vital, because those are the gatekeepers. Yeah,
absolutely. And because many of us have been outside of our countries for quite long, we pretty much need to be school up again about what is happening there, unless those who've been going every year or two, and who've been interested in some of what is happening. But sometimes it's stuff. Now, are there many Zambians, for example, in your case, who from the diaspora, who are going back to to do business? If so, what sort of areas are they going into? If you have any information on that.
So there are some people that are doing, because Zambia is very, very diverse and there's so much happening there, and we're a landlocked country. So that means that, we've got market entry to 8 countries, just like that. So most of the people that I know that are Zambians that are doing business in Zambia, it's more them bringing stuff into Australia. So like, for example, clothing and textile. So that is something that is very, very common that I see. But in terms of projects, in terms of mining, I know there are a few people that have concessions and they're trying to find some funding for these projects, but they are not yet listed on the ASX or anywhere or any stock exchange that I'm more aware of. But in saying that, the Western Australian government has got a sort of like a trade agreement between Western Australia and the COMESA member states. So this is something that I think, as a Zambian and an African, we should be able to tap into these, trade agreements and having a look at understanding, having a deep understanding to say, what does this COMESA, agreement actually mean? And so it was signed a few years ago. And like I said earlier, there's 170 companies here in Australia that are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange that are working in Africa, that are operating in Africa. So those are very good trading partners.
Absolutely. And that leads me to another aspect of things where we have seen over recent years an increase of Australian investors going into Africa. In the case of Congo, for example, where I come from, the number of Australian companies operating in the mining sector in the Congo has been significantly higher, probably 10 times higher than what it was only about 10 years or so ago. Is that the case also in Zambia? And because you're in Perth, where you were talking about all this mining, do you and your involvement with the conference that you mentioned there, do you see more Australians going to Africa for business?
I'm finding actually it's not only Australians, but Africa, because we're looking at we're looking at the next big boom, and Africa is the next big boom. So you're talking about the infrastructure, it's getting better. You're talking about the population. We have a growing population. In terms of commodities, more than 60% is untapped. So we have vast deposits of copper, of gold, and a lot of other commodities, just to mention a few. So everybody is flocking to Africa. Every time I get on a plane, and you find that the business class is quite, full of people heading to Africa. So it's not only Australia, but also China and other countries.
There's China. There's like in Congo, you also find beside China, Australia, and some traditional European countries. There's a lot of Indians and even Lebanese doing business in Africa. Now let's talk about the diaspora. Now, obviously, Africa presents a lot of opportunities, and those of us in Western countries or more developed countries who understand the potential that those opportunities offer, and we have the knowledge and some capital capacity, are thinking of going to do business. But do you think there's enough interest from the diaspora to go and do business in Africa? Because many of the stories we hear, a lot of times people go there, they invest money, but often they end up losing money rather than making money.
It is very easy to lose money, and not only in Africa, but anywhere else. And it comes back to market research, and also the partners that you have back home. And one of the things that I've noticed and why people lose money is because they treat these ventures as, side hustles, as, it's more of a hobby than an actual business. So once it's treated as a business and you put, these proper KPIs in place, you would be able to, evaluate every step of the way. You put in systems and implement those systems, and you'll be able to look to say, okay, are we making money? Are we losing money? Do we have the right people in place? Because it's not just about sending money to Africa, but it's also making sure that, you're sending money to the right people and they are doing the right thing. And do they have the right training so that they can actually execute the projects that you want to achieve? But I know there are some people in Perth that have been very successful in terms of developing housing and student accommodation. So there are some success stories, that we are seeing sprouting up.
And apparently also in real estate, there's been quite a few people who've been involved in real estate in Africa who are making quite a bit of money. Have you heard or have you met any
Yes.
of such investors?
Yes, I have African investors, young women actually. One is doing very well in Kenya. So high rise, it's affordable accommodation that she's started, but it's a brilliant infrastructure, very modern. And then another one, Zambian young lady, she's also invested in student accommodation and low cost housing. And these are young people that are willing to give it a go.
Absolutely.
But it's about having the right people on the other side that can help.
Okay, let me just remind those watching, you're watching African Knowledge here at Africa Made Australia, and I'm talking to NKANDU BELTZ, who is an entrepreneur and who is involved in business, not just here in Australia, but also in Africa. And we're discussing doing business in Africa for the diaspora professionals and business operators, and looking at issues, challenges, and opportunities. We encourage you to make comments, to ask questions, and if you want to even make a comment over the phone as opposed to text comment, we can allow you that. We will display a number on the screen, and you will just need to send us a message through that number, and we will make contact to get you to speak if you want to. Nkandu, now business works with people, and there has to be trust. I think one
Yes.
of the major elements that is affecting, business project when it comes to diaspora communities. I mean, the diaspora individuals who are going to Africa, is that element that you mentioned. The people, if you need to work with the right people, you also need to work with the people who you can trust, and often that's a quite difficult challenge, isn't it? Is that your experience as well?
Yes, it is a difficult challenge, but the way to overcome it, I have a very good friend of mine, teacher and mentor and friend, Dr. John DeMartini. He's a human behavior specialist, and he's written a book, The Values System. And the best way is to first understand what's the hierarchy of your value. And your life is demonstrated by the hierarchy of your values. So once you understand your values, what drives you, it's also easy for you to actually get your staff or the partners or consultants and understand their values as well, because every relationship is value based. So if the people in Africa don't see the value that you're bringing to the table, why would they help in the project? Why should they work for you? So it's about the value that you bring to the table. And I always encourage everyone to do a values determination process. And then that way you will know why people are doing what they do and what makes them, tick.
Okay, so you need to know what makes people tick, and but I suppose unless you go there and spend quite a bit of time, it's not always easy to be able to do that. And some say that for you to really be successful in any business in Africa as a member of the diaspora, you got to go there and spend time there. You can't do business there and here and expect that things will work over there. Do you share that opinion?
Yes, certainly. And like John says, that your life demonstrates your value. So even with the people that I've worked with, most of the time is spend 4 hours with them, and you will clearly see where their values are, because If you're spending 4 hours with someone and you hear what they're constantly talking about, what their actions are, and you will know right away what their priorities are. So it's about spending time with the people, and looking also how they treat people that have less than them.
Okay. And what are some of the difficulties you faced so far in your own experience since you started your mining exploration endeavor in Africa? What are some of the difficulties and some of the successes that you can share with us?
Well, I think the difficulties is managing emotions, because it's like we're dealing with a moving target, so just like any other business. So every time you feel like you've gone over a certain hurdle, and then another challenge pops up, and you don't know whether you will keep going or you're actually going to lose the license, and then you have to compose yourself and motivate and inspire the team to keep going. And sometimes it's you've worked so hard, and then only to find that it's a dead end. There's no that project is actually not commercially viable, so you have to dump that project, despite having invested so much money into the exploration. And I think that's where the risky part is we don't know what we're dealing with until we get to a certain stage to go, okay, yeah, this is the resource that we have, and this is what we can market. So yeah.
And any thing that has worked quite well for you that you would like to share?
Yes, certainly. So some of our projects are coming up with some really good finds. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this publicly, but
because of the investors and all the requirement involved.
Yeah, I'm not sure I should be promoting my projects, but what I can say is that the area where we are, it seems to be quite good. We may have found something, but we're not sure. So we are still doing exploration until we get to a bankable feasibility study, and we have a JOC, and then we will be able to say, yes, this is what we are sitting on. But so far so good. And one of the things that makes me proud is that for every person that we employ, there is a lot of direct and indirect work experiences, opportunities for the people in Zambia. So you can employ one person and in the mining sector, and that person will have to work with other consultants in order to make that work. So in terms of creating employment, it actually doubles or triples as you go. So that in itself makes me feel that we are actually doing something, looking at the number of people that we are working with.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned also the African Union, for example, and you said there was some funding available, and what the African Union is doing in terms of trying to make African countries do business together more than what they've been doing so far, as well as encourage the diaspora community to be engaged. I'm not sure if you've been following many of these things they're doing, but what's your opinion? I mean, for me, when I see what the African Union has been doing, they have a lot of good stated goals and ambitions, but on the ground, things are very complicated. They don't seem to be. They don't seem to do much pragmatically. Do you share that view?
Well, I think the targets that the AU has set are very, very ambitious, and but they're not impossible to achieve. And in terms of funding, Africa has got the money in order to, to develop the projects and execute all the, targets that they've actually set in place. So I think it's just about, working together as a collective to actually make things work. So I don't work directly with the African Union, but I know of their policies and procedures, and also what they're trying to achieve. And during Africa Down Under, we would have somebody who is an African Union representative and who would hear our, our concerns and challenges and our wins, and would go back to the AU and discuss it with them, and they would give some advice, whether it's student engagement or whether it's, just doing business in Africa in general, or accessing some of, the funds that may be available with the AU and the African Development Bank here.
All right, we'll take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, Nkandu, when you look at what is happening in Australia with regards to entrepreneurship within the African Australian community, what do you see?
Well, a lot of hope. I see a lot of hope. I see people that are driven, people that really want to make a difference. And a lot of the people in the diaspora, they're not doing this just to make money. They are doing this to contribute to the, Australian economy, as well as to the different economies that they may be working with in Africa. So it's about making something that's meaningful and leaving a legacy and creating something that's tangible. And every person that I speak with who is doing business here in Australia, born over, from another country, all they want to do is create something meaningful and give back. So, and then you get rewarded for creating change.
Sure. So there are people who are doing things, probably in relation to Africa and doing business in Africa. And there are also people who are building businesses here,
right, in Australia. Yes.
In Australia. Now,
Yes.
with regards to businesses being built in Australia here, do you know of many people who are quite successful in their business endeavors?
Yes, most certainly. From consultants to hairdressers to people setting up, healthcare facilities, and they're doing very, very well. So there's a lot of resources in Australia to help anyone who wants to start a business. The question is, are they willing to learn? So yeah, the tools are there. You can knock on any chamber of commerce or any local council and see what business trainings are available. And also networking. Yeah.
Networking is very important, and it looks to me that many African Australians who want to do business, maybe quite a significant size of them do not network sufficiently, and perhaps or maybe not getting enough from the network, because you may have actually a network. You need to know how to extract value from that network, and there are people who actually are doing enough to build that network. I know from my experience with what I've seen you doing here in Melbourne, one of the most proficient networker and efficient. But when it comes to that, what do you see about what Africans are doing, especially those interested in business, but not just in terms of networking?
Well, I was always told that your network, equals your net worth. So, and it also depends the kind of people that you're networking with. So a friend of mine once said that if you hung out with 4 millionaires, you'll be the fifth. If you hung out with 4 broke people, you'll be the fifth. So it's who you choose to network with, and it's not only you learning from them, but also what you can offer, because we have so much to offer. There's a lot of value in what each and every one of us possesses. So it's how do we actually even monetize that value, or go, okay, this is what I've got to offer, this is what I bring to the table, and this is what I can take from you. So it comes back to the values that are set in place. But there is a lot of networking events that are happening, but not every networking event is worth going to, unless if you are going to get something meaningful out of it, and you're going to contribute something meaningful.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I see more women getting into entrepreneurship than men. What do you think explains that?
Well, when I wrote the last two books, The Feminine Force of Success, and there's just this drive with women that, they want to do more. And I think it's about testing the limits. And also knowing that where I am is not where I should be. I can go higher. So, and I think we're just risk takers in general. And I always ask myself, for example, what's the worst that can happen? I will fail. So what? I'll get up and try again. So you're very right that a lot of the women that I know, are doing businesses. So they may be working for somebody else, but then there would also be a side hustle somewhere. They may be making some hair cream, they may be braiding, they may be freelancing, as accountants. So and also content writers. So there's quite a lot that that women are doing. Yeah.
All right, and I know that there's a lot of willingness or a lot of ambition from the African Australian community for people to go into business, and many African professionals are thinking about that, but it's not always easy to cross that to cross that line from enjoying a very comfortable salary and work 9 to 5,
Yes.
and then deciding that you want to live that comfort and cross the line into a very unpredictable world in business. Can you share with us how you actually yourself made that step, and what is preventing some people to be able to do that, even though they may actually have the idea, they may have the money or the power to the capacity to borrow the money, but they are not actually doing that?
Well,
What sort of advice would you give them?
Well, it's a very risky business, and I think once you take out the safety net, then you know that you have to walk the tightrope. You can't afford to fail. So, and that's the approach that I've taken, because from a very, very young age, I've always been one of those people that will actually give it a go. So I will sell fat cakes if I have to. I will freelance. I will try to make things work. So I think in my case, fear of failure is just not there, and if I fail, I'll pick myself up and try again. And it doesn't matter, if I have to, I will work, and then I will save, and then I will start again. But it's also looking at what sort of business you want to do, and is it aligned with your values. So for people that are looking at starting a business and they are not sure about it, my question is, why do you want to start this business? So it's always going back to why. And is it a service that you want to create and make somebody's life better? How are you making someone's life better? And then how can you be handsomely compensated for the service or the product that you're bringing to the market? So so it's filling in the gaps and making sure that you actually get paid for it. Unless if you want to run a charity, then that's a different case.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of charity, I mean, I see a lot of activity within the community where people are doing, we're very active in the sort of cultural identity type of things, whether organizations and events and activities, and also there's quite a lot of people involved in charity, trying to help, which is all good. But still, if you look at the number of people who are going into business, it's still quite limited. So economic empowerment is still something that still need to be promoted quite widely within the community, even though there is actually a little bit of an increase of economic activity within the community, but there's still a huge gap between where we should be as opposed to where we are now. Do you agree?
I totally agree. And I think it's also the conditioning from growing up where we have been made to believe that, being poor and, is somehow a noble thing to do. So subconsciously, I find that a lot of, especially African born, migrants, they do not want to be rich because they think, riches is associated with, evil or something like that. So it's easier
Mm,
to focus on a charity than it is to dedicate your life to actually creating a business.
mm,
But when you are making a business and you make it successful, in a way it is some form of charity because you're actually being of service to a large number of people and
mm,
you're empowering those people to pay their own bills so they're not financially or emotionally dependent on you.
mm.
So, and I think if we could focus maybe and mobilize our resources and direct them towards supporting each other and developing those businesses, that would be a far much better charity than giving out handouts.
Absolutely. And do you see much in a way of um, you know, in the community, people providing platforms that sort of helps to enlighten, to equip, and train people to think and do business? Do you see much in that?
There is a little bit, so it's here and there, and like you said, we could be doing more. And I think the last 18 months have been a challenge, especially in terms of professional development and personal development as well. But
Mm,
previously, I know there's been some organizations that have they would host maybe a high tea or a breakfast forum, and they'll come and talk about either it's taxation or how to start a business or different services that are needed in the communities. So the training is there, and if it's not with the diaspora, it will also be with local governments and local councils and local chambers as well.
mm.
So yeah.
All right, we're approaching the end of this show. Kandu, I'm just going to ask you perhaps to summarize, I mean, to give your last message to those watching in terms of what you may want to tell them about going into business and the challenges, opportunity that you have come across, and what you may want to advise them on how they can sort of prepare themselves and be more equipped and better suited to pursue those.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. So there's a Chinese saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is now. So it's not too late to start your business. You can start your business, make sure you do your market research, find what the gap is, and then go out there and get mentors, get the coaching that you need. If you have to pay for it, pay for it. But there's nothing that you can't do. You weren't born walking, but you learned how to walk. So it's the same with business. You can learn anything that there is to learn out there. So I'll just say, like the Nike logo, just do it.
Okay, just do it. That's a nice way of ending the show. If you're thinking business, don't think too much. Just do it. Yes, take the time that is needed to think and have a bit of a plan. But in the end, it's the doing, the action that counts. The planning is just to prepare you. A lot of times, people spend a lot of time planning and very little doing, and they don't go anywhere. So there's a lot more um, actions that needs to be done within our community to encourage people to go into business. As far as we're concerned, economic empowerment is a very, very significant goal that we're pursuing through our platform to help by sharing the knowledge, the insights with those who are already in action, and those who are thinking of going into action. So we'll continue to bring more people on the platform to do this. NKANDU BELTZ, thank you very much for your time. We know you're a very busy woman, and in Perth now it's almost 8 p.m. So we don't want to take you too much because you got a family. We appreciate your time, and we hope to have another opportunity in the future to speak to you again about any number of things that may be of importance to the community.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for creating such a wonderful platform. It has been a pleasure speaking with you.
All right. For those of you watching, as usual, we encourage you to share the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like our page. And if you have something that you want to share with the community, contact us. We'll see if we can make it possible for you to come on the platform. Until next time, stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you.